Hello and welcome to the London Legal Podcast, presented by Hodge, Jones and Allen Solicitors. Our leading solicitors share their views on latest legal issues and developments, and how the law might affect you, because we care about righting wrongs and providing first-class personal legal services. So please enjoy this, the London Legal Podcast, presented by Hodge, Jones and Allen Solicitors.
Hello, and welcome to the first podcast from the youth team at Hodge, Jones and Allen Solicitors. The youth team works within the Criminal Defence Department at the firm, and we specialise in representing young people at the police station and also in any criminal proceedings. My name is Caroline Liggins, and I'm a senior associate. I also head up the youth team at the firm. I would also like to introduce...
Hi, my name is Rishi Joshi. I'm a solicitor also in the youth team at Hodge, Jones and Allen. Caroline, to start off, perhaps you could tell us all a little bit about the youth team.
Sure. The youth team specialises in providing bespoke legal advice and representations to young people within the youth criminal justice system in England and Wales. Our youth team lawyers are specially trained to deal with the complex procedure in the youth justice system, and we will be there to talk clients through the process from the first police station interview through to trial, sentencing and/or appeal. Now, Rishi, can you tell me what the difference is between a regular criminal defence solicitor and a criminal defence lawyer specialising within youth work?
The starting point is to understand a little bit about the system and the procedure. So young people in the criminal justice system are dealt with in the youth courts primarily, as opposed to the magistrates' court and the Crown courts, which are primarily intended for adults. So there are, of course, instances where young people will appear in the adult courts. That might be if their case has been joined with an adult co-defendant, but largely the starting point will be that they are dealt with in the youth court. Given that there is a separate and different procedure to the youth court in comparison to the adult court, it's really important that a young person has a specialist lawyer that understands the specialist sort of procedure of the youth court, because it is somewhat different to the adult courts. I guess talking a little bit about the youth courts, Caroline, perhaps you could expand a little bit more in terms of what's special about the youth court and what sets it apart from the others.
Definitely. There are separate rules and procedures in the youth court, given that you are dealing with a child. For example, hearings in the youth court are held in private to protect the child's privacy. Some of the formality in the adult courts are also removed. Lawyers are required to use plain English and avoid using legal jargon. They also address the young person by their first name and make adjustments to ensure that the young person does not feel alienated, but most importantly, feels very much a part of the process. I would say the most important feature about the youth court is that it focuses on the rehabilitative intervention rather than the punishment of the young person. Now, Rishi, can you explain to me, before a case gets to court, can the police just arrest a young person and take them to the station?
So the police have specific rules on how they should exercise their powers when they are dealing with a young person. So where a young person has been arrested and taken to the police station, the young person has a right to have an appropriate adult present at the station and make sure that the police are dealing fairly with them. And also the role of the appropriate adult will be to facilitate communication between the police and the young person, because of course a young person that's never been in that sort of environment before will understandably find it distressing and difficult to communicate with the police and to understand what's going on. If, for example, it's a serious case and the young person needs to be body searched, one of the things that the appropriate adult will do is be there with the young person whilst the search is being carried out, and in essence oversees what happens to the young person whilst they are at the police station. In terms of appropriate adults, Caroline, can anyone be an appropriate adult, or what's the criteria?
So they have to be at least 18 to make sure that they are a suitable, appropriate adult. It is common for a young person to be accompanied by a parent, sibling, or other family member, and in certain cases, social workers too, but they have to be over 18. If nobody is suitable within the family or they don't have a social worker, The police will arrange for an appropriate adult to attend the police station via the National Appropriate Adult Scheme. These will be trained professionals who are there to ensure that the young person is being fairly treated at the police station. Now, we're looking at young people today, Rishi, and obviously sometimes they have medical conditions. Can you tell me how important it is when dealing with young people that you are aware of their medical conditions at the police station?
Yeah, it's something that crops up all the time. I mean, it's really common that, the lawyers in the youth team represent someone, a young person at the police station who is vulnerable as a result of a medical condition. So just by way of an example, we regularly represent clients who might suffer from autism and might have engaged in behaviour which the police and courts say crosses over the threshold to the criminal law and has to be dealt with. But it's our job to ensure that police and the prosecutors are aware of the full circumstances when they're dealing with a young person, and that includes being aware of their medical conditions to make sure that the right steps are taken. But I mean, it's not only a medical condition that makes a young person vulnerable. Is that fair to say, Caroline?
That's correct. Young people are vulnerable as a result of their age and maturity, and it's important to remind the police and prosecutors when representing them of this. Unfortunately, as you know, Rishi, there are also cases where young people might become involved in the criminal justice system as a result of being groomed and trafficked by sophisticated county line drug dealers. Over the past few years, there has been a lot of awareness being raised in the youth justice system of young clients becoming institutionalised as a result of being trafficked. There are signs that we look out for, such as whether a child has been disappearing for days without any knowledge to parents or guardians, or whether a child has been behaving strangely and being given expensive gifts, such as designer clothing or expensive mobile phones from other young men or elder boys. This, of course, is not an exhaustive list. There are many different factors that our youth specialists, in particular the youth team, look out for and ensure that the police and prosecutors are fully aware of these issues through every step. So, Rishi, we've got our appropriate adult and our young person, and they've just been interviewed. Can you explain a little bit about what the outcomes potentially could be?
Sure. So there are a number of different outcomes following interview at the police station. The worst case scenario for the young person would be that they are charged and taken to court. So that can either be charged and remanded into custody and then taken to court, or charged and bailed and then taken to court. The starting point should be that young people are bailed following charge to appear at court the next day. So that's one option, so to speak, that they are charged. The other option might be that if the police are of the view that they don't have sufficient evidence or they need to carry out further inquiries, they may consider bailing the young person to come back to the police station. As part of any police bail, the police may think about imposing conditions. So that may be to live and sleep at a particular address or to abide by a curfew. There are other examples as well, but those are two of the ones that come up fairly frequently. If the police are of the view that bail conditions aren't necessary, they could release a young person under investigation. So what that means is there are no specific restrictions on the young person's liberty, but the police investigation is live and ongoing. The best case scenario would be that a young person is given a no further action outcome. So what that means is the police, following interview, have concluded that they will be taking no further action, and in essence their file is closed and the young person is free to go. In cases where a minor offence has been committed and there is an admission from the young person, what the police are able to do is, rather than charge them and take them to court, is think about whether it might be possible to deal with the young person by way of an out-of-court disposal. So that might be giving the young person a youth caution, which is better than going to court and getting a conviction for a criminal offence. The other option from a caution is that they could divert the young person straight away to the youth offending team, and they would decide what sort of intervention would be necessary following arrest and interview. So, Caroline, we've talked a little bit about what happens at the police station and representing young people, what the outcomes could be. But I guess one of the considerations for families will be whether they need to pay for legal advice. So are you able to talk a little bit about the funding and what options a young person and their families might have?
So the public funding position at the police station is that anyone who is arrested and interviewed at the police station is covered. This means that the solicitor will liaise with police officers, request disclosure, advise the young person fully, and represent their interests at the police station interview. So as I said, anybody at the police station stays is entitled to free, independent legal advice. And just finally, Rishi, I've got a child. When should I approach a criminal defence lawyer who specialises in youth work?
If an allegation has been made about a criminal offence against a young person, a child, regardless of whether it's got to the point where the police are involved, the parents may well want to consider seeking legal advice, and our team would be able to provide advice and intervene at an early stage. It may be that early intervention is beneficial for the young person, just to try to deal with the matters as quickly as possible and to stop it from escalating further. Of course, it's not always a guarantee, but it can be helpful to intervene early. Of course, if the police have invited a young person for an interview, or the police have arrested a young person and they've been taken to a police custody suite, then of course a parent can contact our team. We've got an emergency police station number as well, and we'd be able to assist in terms of arranging representation at the police station. Similarly, if a young person has received a letter from the court saying that the young person has a hearing, then the best thing to do is to get in touch with the youth team and we can talk you through your options.
That's brilliant, Rishi. Thank you so much for that. I'd also like to say it's been great to be able to start the discussion on the youth justice system and what the youth team can help you with today. Please keep an eye out for our next podcast very soon.
Thank you for listening to the London Legal Podcast, presented to you by Hodge, Jones and Allen Solicitors. To listen to more podcasts, follow us on SoundCloud or visit our website www.hja.net for interesting opinions and the latest legal information. Or if you need our help, call 0808 2780 216.